Hello, hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Leap to Success podcast. The Leap to Success podcast is where we highlight incredible women entrepreneurs who are taking bold leaps in business and life. I'm your host, Mary Gaul, and I believe that success is built through connection, contribution, and celebration. Each episode, we bring you inspiring stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies to help you grow and thrive as a solopreneur. So let's dive into today's conversation with fellow Leap for Ladies member, Mary Kominska. I am excited to introduce you to our global podcast listeners within the Leap community. Our Leap community member, Mary Kominska, and she's got a couple of businesses, but her business is called Best and Beautiful You. So she finds ways to bring out the best and beautiful you. I'm so excited to get to share her gifts and talents with our listeners today. So Mary, thank you. I think I can remember your name easily enough. It's great to have another Mary on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. And hello, everybody. Thanks for having me, Mary. And there's something about Mary, right?
There is something about Mary. All right, for sure. So Mary, tell our listeners a little bit about your story and what makes you so awesome.
Well, I will tell you that my entire story is available on my website, but I will give you the Reader's Digest version.
Great.
I live in Mesa, Arizona with my incredible husband and my four-legged dog, Titus. Scott asked me to marry him when I was 18 years old, and I said no. And he never married, never had kids. For me, that was a different story. And we are actually celebrating 12 years of marriage in May of this year. So
nice.
I know. And it wasn't Facebook that brought us back together. It was part of my healing of wanting to undo some wrongs that I had done or thought I had done, which I didn't do. But, you know, we tend to make it all about us sometimes. So that's a little bit about my home life. I left the corporate world not by choice. I actually had been working full-time in corporate, and my manager actually had suggested that I do Avon because she was tired of ordering from avon.com, because back then, and you still can, but it's about the relationship. And so I have done home-based businesses since I was 18 years old. And you can only have so much dinnerware and so many baskets and so many candles, and so you only have so many walls to decorate. And so I was never able to go any farther in those businesses. And so when she had suggested Avon, I thought, well, why not? Because I'm not your girl to call to go shopping with. I'm not her. But I still need my everyday needs. I still need all the things. And I remember grandma selling Avon back in the 80s. And so, you know, sure, what have I got to lose? And ended up joining this June. I will be 19 years in the business.
Wow, good for you.
It is. And there's been a lot of ups and downs and sideways and upside down turns along the journey, but absolutely incredible. And through, you know, when we're in corporate, we're not really encouraged to learn and heal and grow and stretch yourself. They kind of want a robot. And so being an entrepreneur with Avon really guided me to do that. And then I had a lot of healing from my childhood and my early days of life in my 20s and 30s to heal from. And was given that space and time, and that kind of led me to a boundaries journey, which then led me to writing my 4-week course in 2023, launched it last year in 2024, became a published author from it at the end of last year. I know, right? I never saw that in my forecasted future. So not on my vision board, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
So that is a little, and I started substitute teaching in November. So I kind of have my hands in a lot of different things.
I love it. I love it. And I love Avon. I've used Avon my entire life. My mom sold another beauty product when she was in the 80s and 90s. but and then I have a sister that sold Avon for a number of years as well. And, some of their things are just so classic and so standard that if you use them, you just always use them, right? Because they're just part of how you do things. So,
Yes,
and I
yes, it's
love that
part of
they've
your
been
life.
around for a long time, right? And they have that consistency. And, you've seen in 19 years a lot of changes in the beauty product industry and just how people perceive themselves and, what kind of products we're buying and all the, anti-aging and all that kind of stuff is out
Yeah.
there now too. And so, there's just so many new things that it's always good to talk to a person. And I think, for those of you that don't know, Avon is an online platform, and you might see the catalogs, right? So maybe at your nail salon, or I see them every once in a while. It's like, oh, there's an Avon catalog, right? So,
Yes, yes.
um,
Well,
but
and
full of great products.
I have a trivia question for you, Mary. How
Yeah.
long do you think Avon has been in business?
Oh, I'd say well over 100 years, right?
You are correct. 138 years before women even had the right to vote.
Wow. Wow.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And then a fun fact is back in 2018, a company that you may be familiar with called LG. Maybe you've
Mhm.
had a phone in the past or a TV or something. They have a home and household and home. I always get that confused. It's H&H. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Um, and they bought the North America side of Avon in 2018. So now
Oh,
we can offer Korean beauty and a lot of other products. And you had commented before we started recording on my shirt, and I
hmm,
said, "Oh, thank you. I love shopping at my store." Like literally, my fashion, my jewelry, my lips, my skincare, my hair care, my body, all of it, everyday needs. I don't need to go to any other store because I have it all in one stop shop.
yes. Love that. Love that. That's great. Yes. And I love the story. When my sister was involved, she would win awards of this woman, and I can't remember her name, who founded
Mrs.
like the
Albee.
Apple. Yes. Yeah. So her story is pretty incredible too. So just women supporting women, and it's typically been, there might be Avon men out there too, but building the relationship, the commercials growing up were like ding dong, Avon calling, and it was your Avon lady coming to chat with you and go through the catalog and deliver your stuff. And really it is all about that relationship with somebody else in your community, right?
Right.
Which is so powerful. And now we can do that on the internet, but still having that person that you can go to for questions or returning something. And that's the other thing is, returning something, you can't always do that if something you just ordered online or something like
Right.
that, right?
Yeah. And I love being able to do skincare consultations and makeup consultations via
Hmm.
Zoom with people who don't live near me or even who do, but trying to get our schedules together is really hard. We
Yeah.
also have a really cool tool there's two really cool tools that I love. One is a virtual try on tool. And
Oh,
so you
fun.
put a picture of yourself or you're just alive and you can play with all the different, like foundation, you could do the darkest one and like, oh, right. Or make yourself so pale. It's lots of fun. And I have a friend recently who sent me a picture of herself using it. And then the other thing I love is I heard you say the catalog that you can flip through.
Hmm.
And we do have, and I've got it behind me back here, we do have our brochure. We also have a virtual flippable
Hmm.
version of it as well. So
Yeah.
and it has videos and such. So they're still tried and true, but hip with today's technology.
Right. Which is why they've been around for so long, is because you have to adapt as a business owner,
Yeah,
right?
we
So
do.
so important. And, speaking of adapting, you've had to do some adapting, right? Going from your corporate world to being a business owner, and then now launching your course and your products and your book. So tell us more about the T program, and what it's about and who it's for.
Okay, so the T program is for everybody, and I know that that's always a hard thing, but it really is. And I made it to where when I wrote it, it was anybody as young as eighth grade to as old as 100 years old would get it.
Hmm.
And kind of where it was born from is And I love building relationships, being vulnerable and authentic first, because then that gives others permission to do the same. And
Mm-hmm.
so my boundaries journey started in 2018, the day that I called the police because my son was using heroin in my house and he was
Mm.
arrested on a warrant. And there happened to be a boundaries class that was suggested to me by someone who came to the house that night, and happened to be the only day I was available, the only time I was available. And so took that class, and then I was asked a couple months later if I would consider co-facilitating with the gentleman who did it with me. And I kind of laughed at him like, huh, I ain't got these boundaries figured out. And she said, you never will. It's an ongoing journey, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And even something happened today that I'm like, man, these boundaries are so tough sometimes. And it's not really the boundaries that are tough, it's the communicating the boundary and then following through on the consequences of that boundary, right?
Yes, yeah.
Um, and so, as incredible as the class was, it was very scripture based, and there was a lot of people in my life who needed what they were talking about, but because it was at a church and because it was very scripture heavy, they wouldn't take it.
Mm-hmm.
I surround myself with people who don't look like me, who don't think like me, who don't believe like me. So it was very difficult to share. I mean, I would share what I learned, but a lot of times you have to have that whole, because it builds on each other, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I said yes to co-facilitating, and then COVID happened and we went via Zoom. And then the main facilitator, his life was changing, and I knew that I was being called to write this course for many reasons. First of all, everything starts in our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do starts in our thoughts. And the boundaries class, as incredible as it is, it never talked about thoughts. So as a
Oh.
co-facilitator, I would come along and say, it starts in your thoughts. And so it also didn't talk a lot about self-care. And self-care is not mani-pedi. Self-care is forgiveness. Self-care is making your bed in the morning, like accomplishing,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more to self-care. And so week one it's 4 weeks. It's 1 hour, because the boundaries was 2.5 hours, and it was anywhere from 9 to 13 weeks.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was a big, huge commitment. And we would
Mm-hmm.
start to see people, and I was one that I'm like, oh God, here we go again. Right. But I knew
Yeah.
it was needed. And so I knew it needed to be short, sweet, and impactful. And I knew it had
Nice.
to have zero scripture, zero reference, so that any human, it's about the human experience, could take advantage of this. And so week one is all about your thoughts. Week two is about your emotions with an intro to boundaries. Week three is all about boundaries, and week four is about self care. And what's been really beautiful is when you've gone through the course the first time, I give you a code for 50% off. So you can get, and I encourage rinse and repeat. And in my current class right now, I have a lady who went through it in August. She brought her daughter who's in college because she never taught her kids any of this, because she didn't know any of this. And so she's gifting it to all of her girls, and her
Nice.
other
I
two girls
love
live in
that.
Florida. So I rotate between Zoom and in person every other month, so that I can get the masses, right? I had somebody from Canada join the last Zoom. And it was really incredible. So it is, I know it's so tough, but it really is for everyone. And seeing
Yeah.
relationships restored, and seeing parents bringing their kids in going, oh my gosh, you need this. And the biggest
Yeah.
thing I hear over and over, Mary, is I wish I would have met you sooner. And I said the same thing when I started boundaries. I wish I would have learned this when my kids were younger, right? So eventually, my hope and prayer is that it gets into some kind of school with the moms. And, I mean, the teachers are pretty good with boundaries, but there's always something to learn, always something to learn.
Yes, yes, exactly. Sorry if you can hear there's a car alarm going off and somebody's
Okay.
so
It's all
hoping
in real life.
it's real life. So sorry, I don't know whose car that is, but
It's all right.
um, seems like it's getting louder all of a sudden too. But anyway, hopefully it's going to be fixed soon. But I love that. I love that. And these are things that, unless you've done some personal development work, which they don't really teach in schools, or they didn't when I was going to school.
They
I don't,
still don't.
my kids have been through school for a long time, but they don't really teach this to us, like you said, in schools. And so if the parents haven't had that experience and the kids don't get that experience in school, where are we learning it, right? And so that's why courses like this are so important to do. And I'm glad that you're out there and you're having that impact, right? Multiple generational impacts as well as international impacts, right? Which I love. So, and one of the things you said earlier is boundaries, but the boundaries are the easy part, right? It's kind of like I tell my clients, setting goals is the easy thing. It's actually executing on those goals and implementing the strategies. That's where the hard work comes in. Writing down your goal is not the hard thing, right? So setting the boundary is not the hard thing. It's actually making sure that it gets upheld and the consequences are there, and then following through on those consequences, right? So I think that's so important for people to hear. How do you take all of this information from your tea program and blend it into, the name of your company is
Best and Beautiful You.
Best and Beautiful You. So how do you blend that together?
So that's a great question. So Best and Beautiful You is the umbrella. So
Mm-hmm.
your outside beauty is Avon, is, your skincare, on the outside. Um, but what's interesting, I'll be 56 next month, and I'm told how I look younger now than I did when I was in my 20s because I healed from the inside out. You can only
Nice.
put so much makeup and so much skincare and so much, but if the inside is not pretty, then you're just covering it up, right? And so the inside portion is where I'm also a master mindset coach, and I do life coaching. And so that is an umbrella of Best and Beautiful You, is an umbrella of my tea course, Avon, my life coaching, pretty much everything. And I empower you. I don't help
Mm-hmm.
you. I empower you to be the best and
Nice.
beautiful you were created to be. And my core, just really quick to go back to my tea course, which you kind of see behind me, and I always point the wrong way.
Yeah.
But it is an actual full-fledged 89-page workbook that gives you tools and gives you words and gives you everything. And the 4-week course is only $80.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
I wanted it affordable. There were 3 people. I was doing this for free all the time, and there were 3 people that said, Mary, you need to start charging for your time. And that's kind of where the whole journey began. And I know there's courses out there that charge $500 and up, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the reasons I didn't heal for as long, because I couldn't afford something like that, right?
Right.
So not only did I want it short, sweet, and impactful, I wanted it affordable that anybody could take it. And then again, you get to do it over and over again for $40. And if you
Nice.
want a workbook every single time, I'll send you the workbook, or in person, I bring the workbook. But if you do a Zoom, I mail the work. Amazon mails the workbook, but
Right.
Mary
Yeah.
puts it in the system for Amazon to do it, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that. I love that. And really, making it, I love your little phrase, short, sweet, and impactful, right? So, because there are so many things, I think the last stat I've heard about people buying online courses that they never even open, it's in the 80% of people buy a course and then never even open the course, right? So,
Yeah.
sometimes, or they might open it once and they go in there and they get so overwhelmed and there's so much information, or there's 27 videos they have to watch and all this kind of stuff. So I love that you've condensed it down to, here are the things you need to know and the tools and resources you need to do, and then let's go and do it, right? But if you need help, come back.
Well, and it's not a video. It's you get me an
Yeah,
hour every week for 4 weeks. I
I
have a
love it.
friend who is paying $125 with insurance for a therapist. And when she met me, and she was like, oh, okay, $80 to get you for 4 weeks. Okay, I'm signing up. And she
Yeah.
signed up, and she said, I learned more in your 4 weeks than I have 6 months with my therapist.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
so yeah, it's not a video. That's the thing, is like it's me, and
Yeah.
you get my stories, and you get real life applications, and a time to answer questions at the end. Not a whole lot of time, but because it is
Yeah.
only 1 hour, and there's a lot of information that I compact in to every single week.
Nice, nice. And Mary, you mentioned you do them once a month on online, and then another month you do them, you rotate between in person and online. So you're in Arizona.
Yep.
How we're going to put all of your contact information in the show notes, but if somebody's listening or driving or whatever, what's the best way for people to learn more about the T program?
So you can go onto my website, bestandbeautifulyou.com, all spelled out, bestandbeautiful.com. And then you'll see a T course tab on the top. It's the very first tab.
Okay.
And it always has the next two upcoming classes that you can register for. And I only allow 10 in each class. And I've
Yeah.
learned that the hard way, because the bigger it is, the harder it is. And I want it to be a little bit more intimate as well. Now, I did have one where there was a couple that asked if they could do it, and I was already at capacity. So there's times where if you reach out to me, if it's already sold out, you reach out to me based on the questions I ask and how you answer. I may go ahead and allow you to join us
Okay.
for that one.
Good, good to know. So just for our listeners out there, whenever you're listening to this or watching this video, go check out the website and get into the next class. I mean, it's really almost a no-brainer, right? Because if you need, well, we all need this kind of work, right? So whether you think you need it or not, you do need it, right? You'll get some value out of it.
Well,
For $80, that's a great.
it is. And I'll tell you that even rinsing and repeating is so important, right? But then when you
Hmm.
teach it, you're held to a higher standard as well, right? And so I learn something every single week. I get
Yeah.
to learn with you. I hear a story from somebody and I was like, oh, that's good. I didn't think of that, right?
Hmm.
So I am continuously learning along with you, even though I'm teaching it, I've done it, I've wrote it. But at the same token, being humble and knowing that I don't have it all figured out.
Yeah. Yes, it's just so important. And it's so important to hear from people, because you project as very successful and you've got things together and you've got all these wonderful offerings, right? But we're human beings and we have our own questions and our own struggles and those kind of things. So I love that being vulnerable and letting people see you as a real person when you're teaching something was really positive.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions. I just want to dive into some of these. So you've been in Avon for 19 years and in your own business now for a couple of years with the T program and writing a book and all of that kind of stuff. So what has been one of your biggest lessons or surprises along the way, and how did it shape your business or your life?
Oh, that's a good question. So I would have to say the biggest surprise is when I worked at corporate, I had somebody telling me what to do, when to do it, how to do it.
Hmm.
And so when I got laid off, I was already making more with my quote unquote side gig of Avon. I was
Yeah.
already making more doing that than I was my corporate full-time job. And so when I was laid off, I was like, okay, I'll take the weekend off and then I'll just do this full time. It took me 8 years to figure
Oh,
how to make it work, because again, back to boundaries, right?
right.
Sometimes the hardest boundaries we ever have is with ourselves. Just saying.
Yes.
And you don't have somebody telling you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. You have to create it, and then you have to surround yourself with people that are going to hold you accountable to it
Hmm.
as well. And when somebody says, well, did you do this, that is a closed-ended question. And having people around me that ask me open-ended questions. What happened when you got to bed at this time, or you went and did this at this time, right?
Right,
and
right.
and so that was a big surprise, that I didn't think it was going to take me 8 years to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
I still struggle, like every day is, but
Hmm.
you have to go to bed at night with what your goals are for the next day and what your plan is to accomplish them every single day.
Yes.
Because if you just wake up and you don't have that plan and that mission, then everything else is prettier and that's shinier and that's what's going to get your
Yeah.
attention.
Exactly, exactly. So that's kind of my next question is entrepreneurship can be a wild ride, right? You never know what's going to come your way. COVID happens, whatever happens, right? So what daily habits or practices help keep you grounded and moving forward? So you just alluded to really kind of closing down your day,
Time
prepping
before.
yourself for the next day.
Yep.
What other kind of practices have you put in play that help you kind of get through those challenges of the crazy ride we're on?
Well, and the fact that you said the word grounded, what keeps
Mhm.
me grounded is my faith. And so I bookend my days. In the morning, there's a Bible plan on the YouVersion app, and at night, because there's still this handheld thing that needs to happen, right?
Yeah.
As good as technology is, there's still this handheld thing. So when I crawl into bed at night, so I bookend my days. So the morning is the Bible app, and at night is the 365 devotional that I do, and
Hmm.
that kind of keeps me grounded, and then praying my way throughout the day, because here's the bottom line too, is I built my kingdom to watch it fall.
Mm.
There was a point in time where I was number 2 in the state of Arizona. Mary made some poor choices, Avon made some poor choices, and so in really realizing that I'm a vessel, and
Hmm.
all blessings come from him, and I need it to be his will, not mine. And he sends me who I need, and I love them and care for them, and show them his love. And that's what keeps me grounded. And that's ultimately what keeps me going, because I wake up every morning after my Bible plan. I'm like, all right, God, well, who are you bringing me today? What you got for me today?
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of what keeps that drive and the grounding at the same token.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. So many of our listeners out there might be on the edge of taking a big leap in their lives. What is your best piece of advice for taking some bold action with confidence?
Stop talking about it and start doing it.
Nice. Love
And
it.
surrounding yourself with positive people. There are
Hmm.
so many negative people. Again, all starts in our thoughts, right? There are so many negative people, and someone you might think is positive, they can smush that dream in a heartbeat. One of the powerful things in my course too, that is, don't take advice from people who criticize you. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times that's what we tend to do.
Hmm.
And so telling people what you've done, not what you're going to do.
Yes.
Show instead of tell, right? Remember back in school, it was show and tell time, right?
Hmm.
So instead of telling people, show them.
Yes. Yes. Love that. I love that. Yeah. And as far as taking that big leap, really, you just need to start taking some action, right? Some people get so paralyzed, like if I make a mistake, or what's going to happen if I do something wrong or take the wrong action. And as we know, if you're an entrepreneur, that will happen. Yes, it will happen. So just get out there, and by taking action, that's how you're going to learn. And yes, of course, surrounding yourself with positive people, and people who have already gone through what you're going through, you can learn a lot from them, but you still have to take the action, right? It's
Do.
part of that, the process. You still have to
And
do the
even
work.
in week 1 of T, I talk about failure. And
Hmm.
one of the quote, there's growth work, and no one wants to do homework. I call it growth work. And
Yeah.
so the growth work, one of the questions is, when did you become afraid to fail?
Hmm.
And I love the saying fail forward. So you're going to try it, and you're probably going to fail at it. And that's great. Look at how long Thomas Edison didn't fail at the light bulb 1,000 times. It was
Yeah.
1,000 steps to create that light bulb. And you and I both have light bulbs on right now. And I bet our listeners, if they're listening, if they're driving, they probably don't have a light bulb on in their car.
Right. Yeah.
But they probably have a light bulb. And so every time I think of, like, that's for me an internal motivation, because motivation is internal, it's not external. And so
Yeah.
as I'm about to, like, be fearful about trying something new, even my book, for example, having tea become a workbook, I think of Thomas Edison and his words of 1,000 steps, not failing 1,000 times. And so how many
Yes.
steps do you have to, my son who struggles with addiction, how many steps, and then one step forward, 15 back, but you just keep
Right.
taking that next step forward, and eventually you're going to get there.
Yes, yes. Great, great advice. Okay, so we're going to wrap up our time today. So thank you again, Mary, for being such an inspiration in the world and for helping us be our best and beautiful selves. I love that. For our listeners, please, 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 check out the show notes. If you're driving, do that when you get back to your safe space, when you're not moving. But if you're watching at your desktop or you're on your phone, please check out Mary's contact information and go and check out when the next tea workshops start. So if you can get one locally, I'm sure that's amazing to be in the same room with Mary. But if you can do it on Zoom, you get the workbook and everything. So that's a great way to have her help you. And again, it's a live session instead of a recording. So quit buying all these recorded courses and just get the help you need with the live person, live human being. In this age of AI, which I love AI, I use the technology all the time, but we do need to have that connection with other human beings. And so even if it's on a Zoom call or, if you can get to a live class, it's even better, right? We need that connection.
100%.
Great, great. All right, so that is a wrap on our Leap to Success podcast. I hope that you found some inspiration, some motivation, and a few golden nuggets to take with you on your journey. If you loved this conversation, be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. If today's guests resonated with you, if Mary resonated with you, give them some love. Show Mary some love by sharing this episode with your community. Remember, you can find Mary and her contact information in the show notes. So wherever you're listening, whether it's on your favorite streaming or on YouTube, or you're catching this on LinkedIn, you can find all of her contact information there. If you want to go deeper and if you're looking for that sense of community, you can join us inside the LEAP community, where you'll find even more resources, connections, and opportunities to show up and grow. Visit successmagnified.com/leap for ladies to learn more. Until next time, keep taking bold leaps, contributing your gifts, and celebrating your successes. Thanks so much, Mary.
Bye.